Hello friends, welcome to the most comprehensive video that you will ever see on supplemental garlic. I will tell you things in this video that you've never known about garlic, and I think by the end of the video you'll decide to supplement garlic yourself if you haven't already. I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that in the description below you will find a link to a blog post in which I have citations for everything that I discuss in this video. I highly recommend checking out the blog post because instead of just including the citations, you can see this is sort of the blog post. I have notes, just a short note, a sentence on what you can find on each of the papers. There are also some things in the notes that I will probably not get to in this discussion to save some time. Anyway, with that said, as you guys know, every week I'm doing a review of a supplement. Last week's was melatonin. This week's is garlic, and the reason why is because garlic is one of the supplements I most strongly believe in. But I'm going to take you on a tour of why, beginning first with the subject of allium vegetables. So there are two vegetable families that I feel very strongly about. One is the cruciferous family, which includes broccoli and kale and the like. And the other is the allium family, which includes onions, garlic, leeks, scallions, and things like that. Briefly, I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that, so there are some things called phytochemicals. Phytochemicals include phenols, they include flavonoids, there's different classes of them. The garlic doesn't have actually the highest amount of these. So for example, in terms of phenolic content, onion is superior to garlic. And by the way, each of the phenols acts slightly differently in the body. So I'm just talking about quantity now. Onions is superior to garlic in terms of quantity, and garlic is slightly superior to leeks. In terms of antioxidant status, as judged by the DPPH assay. Now remember, there's many kinds of assays for antioxidants. There's like 4 or 5 that are regularly used. And the point is, we're only studying it here with the DPPH assay. Other assays may reveal different outcomes. But in terms of that assay, onions are superior to leeks, which are then also superior to garlic. A side note I'd like to mention is that garlic does produce more nitric oxide from N-nitrosoglutathione than onion extract, which does more than leek extract. In general, a theme that you'll notice in this discussion is that garlic really potently improves glutathione status. So, to begin, let's discuss what garlic is. So garlic is metabolized in the body and also in its cooking process into over 100 bioactive metabolites. Broadly categorized into organosulfur compounds, those are organic compounds that contain sulfur, and carotenoids and polyphenols. I won't get too much into the carotenoids and polyphenols though. Then the reason why, I should say, the most attractive element of garlic is the organosulfur compounds, and the same, in my opinion, for the allium family in general. So, the first thing that you should know about is allicin. Allicin is the most, probably the most important organosulfur compound in garlic. Allicin is not present in an intact garlic clove. It is similar to how sulforaphane is produced from broccoli. It develops when the garlic clove is crushed or somehow processed. So what happens specifically is that the enzyme allinase reacts with sulfenic acids to transform allin into allicin. Allicin being, of course, absent in the intact garlic clove. Allicin appears to be a defensive compound for the garlic plant. It causes pain in predators that consume it. And so it seems to be that when a predator would attack the garlic clove and crush it, they would develop pain and then they would try not to attack this plant anymore. But this allicin also, just like many other, you could say, hormetic stressors in the world of phytochemicals, really produces great impacts on our health. Probably because we have evolved over hundreds of thousands or even millions of years to react to these phytochemicals that are signals from our environment. Allicin is, as I said, a sulfur-containing, very volatile compound. It is the most abundant thiosulfinate in fresh garlic, accounting for about 70% of the thiosulfinates and 0.4% of crushed mass of fresh garlic. By the way, a single clove of garlic can produce up to 4 to 5 milligrams of allicin. Allicin can be transformed into lipophilic and hydrophilic metabolites that are also organosulfur compounds. Lipophilic means that they easily, they easily enter into us through the cell membrane. They can potentially cross the blood-brain barrier if the molecule is small enough. And hydrophilic ones also have a different kind of metabolism in the body. These different compounds, the organosulfur compounds, like for example allyl cysteine, allicin, allyl disulfide, all scavenge free radicals in slightly different ways, meaning that having a variety of them may be helpful for our health. Just a note, allicin's shelf life is quite short. Once you have actually, for example, if you're creating like a garlic sauce where you've crushed garlic, there is allicin there. You can increase the shelf life by lowering the pH level, for example, by adding vinegar to it. In terms of flavanols, onion is you probably have heard of this, and actually I'll probably do a video on quercetin. Quercetin is a flavanol that is very well known to be present in onions. And I supplement quercetin myself because I don't eat enough fresh onion for the purpose of getting enough of it, and it's very powerful. But onions have a lot of quercetin. They have a lot of something I've never pronounced before in my life, but it's called kaempferol. I read it but never pronounce it. And luteolin. I've actually never pronounced that either. Some things you read and you just never actually end up saying them to people. So onions have high amounts of these. Much higher quercetin, for example, than garlic. I mean, it's incomparably, it's about 30 times higher. But garlic does have high amounts of myricetin and epigenin, which is more than what onions have, but still in the total quantity is lower. This is probably not very important, but I should mention that the lipids that are found in garlic, the fats in garlic, 23% of them are phospholipids, 14% are glycolipids, and 63% are neutral lipids. I'm not sure what you would do with this information, but I did decide to make this video very comprehensive. So, I just want to mention broadly, without getting too much detail, you can look at the notes, but the different varieties of garlic have different amounts of polyphenols, of flavonoids, and of antioxidant ability as well. And not just the different species, but also where they're grown and what time of year and so on. Now, I want to talk briefly about aged garlic because it's quite popular to use aged garlic, and there are some benefits and drawbacks to it. First of all, aged garlic is manufactured by soaking the garlic in a solution that has 12 to 20% of aqueous ethanol in room temperature for up to 20 months. The purpose of this is mainly to reduce the pungent smell of the garlic. The problem with supplementing a lot of garlic is you begin to smell like garlic. And aged garlic will do this a little bit less. The problem with aged garlic is it contains far less allicin. Or allicin. Sorry, I don't know why I said allicin. It contains far less allicin, which is the main organosulfur compound that we're interested in. However, it increases, the aging process increases the amount of S-allyl cysteine, which is called SAC, S-A-C. You'll commonly see SAC. SAC is the reason that people, other than the lack of pungent odor, the other reason why people like myself supplement with aged garlic. There's other compounds as well that are increased. The one that I'd like to mention is selenium. I'm not very fond of selenium because it's very associated with the metabolic syndrome, type 2 diabetes, and those kind of things. Now, compared to fresh garlic extract, I want to mention one of the problems with diabetes, and it's not the main problem, but one of the problems is these things called, they're called advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. Basically, these things cause harm to the body from people having too high blood sugar levels for a long time. Aged garlic extract is 2 times more capable at inhibiting cross linkages between AGEs. It is also more capable at inhibiting post-Amadori AGE formation, but only at higher doses. It is 1/3 better at inhibiting fructosamine formation. It is slightly worse at inhibiting glycation-induced protein carbonyl formation, but better at inhibiting glycation-induced protein thiol formation. Basically, aged garlic may be helpful for people that are diabetics, maybe potentially more so than fresh powdered garlic. But aged garlic has 1/3 more antioxidant power on the ABTS assay. That's another assay. But it has less on the DPPH assay in terms of antioxidant status. It is also worse at chelating metals from the body, which we'll talk about a little bit later, than fresh garlic. But it has higher amounts of phenolics, like phenols. So for example, aged garlic has 129 milligrams per gram, whereas fresh garlic has 56. So it's quite a bit higher. It also has about double the amount of flavonoids, and it has also almost more than double the amount of flavanols. So it has less allicin, which is something we really care about, but it has more SAC, and it has more of the phytochemical quantity in general. So it has a different nature. Now let's get into some things that, let's get into the studies of how garlic can improve health in rodents as well as in humans. So first of all, one of the most notable things about supplementing garlic is its effect on inflammation. So garlic, generally, garlic extract improves the activity of glutathione. I'll give you some specific examples of how it inhibits inflammation or lowers inflammation. So for example, it inhibits the pro-inflammatory pathway NF-kappa B, which results in less of an inflammatory response to lipopolysaccharides, which are inflammatory chemicals released by our microbiome that sometimes enter our blood. They're very well studied and of interest to researchers. A meta-analysis of 16 trials found that garlic reduced C-reactive protein level, reduced interleukin-6, which is a pro-inflammatory cytokine, and reduced tumor necrosis factor alpha, which is also a pro-inflammatory cytokine. And just to be clear, garlic is modulating pro-inflammatory pathways like NF-kappa B, but it is also reducing the actual causes of inflammation, like oxidative stress, which we'll talk about later. There are other studies that have confirmed the reduction in C-reactive protein, and it's been shown that even one meal of garlic, containing garlic, can improve immunity, reduce apoptosis, and do other things to the body. Allicin's anti-inflammatory potential is so great that it has been shown to reduce cartilage, what did I call it? The destruction of cartilage in rodents models of osteoarthritis. So osteoarthritis is kind of arthritis that causes really maybe the majority of the pain that elderly people have. And the effect on because the cartilage gets worn down by pro-inflammatory cytokines. So allicin being the main organosulfur molecule we're interested in garlic, is so potent that it can reduce the wearing down of cartilage in these rodents. In terms of metabolism, one thing that I'm almost certain you've never heard of before, and actually I don't think anyone's talked about it on YouTube or on podcasts, garlic has been shown to increase, to upregulate the expression of UCP1, that's uncoupling protein 1. UCP1 is very involved in the activity of brown fat. Remember, brown fat, there are two kinds of fat. There's white fat, well, there's also beige fat, but there's white fat and brown fat. White fat is mitochondria, it doesn't have much mitochondria in it, so it's not very metabolically active. Whereas brown fat is actually, I have a lot of brown fat personally. Brown fat is actually, it's brown because of the amount of mitochondria it has in it. And it generates a lot of heat. And so it's considered to be a healthful kind of subcutaneous fat. So it seems that garlic may, because of its activity on UCP1, may increase the browning of white fat, or at least increase the activity of brown fat. Garlic has been shown to, via its activation of brown fat, it's been shown to improve insulin resistance, decrease adiposity, which means fat, and improve glucose homeostasis in obese models, in rodent models of obesity. It's also been shown to attenuate weight gain in a fructose-induced model of the metabolic syndrome in rodents. So where they give, because fructose will cause metabolic syndrome. So it actually limits the weight gain, which is really interesting. So this was a section on metabolism I wrote. You'll see on the notes. Let's talk about the liver and the kidneys a little bit. So allicin, as I described before, improves glutathione peroxidase, glutathione reductase, and glutathione S-transferase. And specifically does this at the liver, where glutathione is the main antioxidant. A lot of the damage that's done to the liver is because of oxidative stress that cannot be handled with glutathione, with the expression of glutathione that we have in our bodies. So garlic extract also appears to protect the liver from acetaminophen-induced damage in rodent models, which acetaminophen causes a lot of liver damage in people. It also protects against non-alcoholic fatty liver disease due to its anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects. Allicin also protects the kidneys from toxins in a similar manner and seems to be therefore nephroprotective. So kidney protective, which I don't think anyone, probably most people have not heard of that before. But this is just because of the same mechanism that it has on the liver. In terms of diabetes, there's something very interesting. So type 1 diabetes is characterized by, it's an autoimmune disorder. It's not very similar to type 2 diabetes. They have very different causes. And basically what happens is there are immune antibodies that attack the pancreatic isolates. Allicin appears to inhibit the activity of these anti-isolate antibodies in rodent models of type 1 diabetes. Now, one of the biggest fields of research in regards to garlic is really cancer. So there have been epidemiological studies that showed that garlic consumption, and to a lesser degree onion consumption actually, is inversely associated with gastric cancer incidence and mortality. This is really robust. I mean, it's not robustly, but it's one of the biggest epidemiological results. If you search garlic cancer on Google Scholar, you'll come across a lot of things about gastric cancer. By the way, that's stomach cancer, which is pretty prevalent around the world, especially in Asia. Potentially, by the way, because of H. pylori, which is a kind of bacteria that unfortunately a lot of people in Asia have. And it is very destructive and causes gastric cancers, causes ulcers as well as gastric cancers. And we'll get to this in a bit, but garlic actually is useful in the treatment of H. pylori as well. So epidemiological evidence or data has also shown that allium vegetables, so that class of vegetables that have these organosulfur compounds like leeks and so on, is inversely associated also with prostate cancer risk. Allicin, that same organosulfur compound that we've been talking about, induces apoptosis in hepatocellular carcinoma cells, which are liver cancer cells. It does the same, kills cells in glioma and glioblastoma cells, which is in the brain cancers. It inhibits telomerase and induces apoptosis in gastric cancer cells. Why would you want to inhibit telomerase? Because telomerase, think of it as like a, you know how your shoestring has a piece of plastic at the end that keeps it tied together? Telomerase does the same kind of thing for DNA and cells. And if telomerase is, so telomeres do that. Telomerase extends telomeres. So if you have telomerase extending your telomeres, your cells are going to keep dividing, which is an issue in cancer cells specifically. So you'd like them to have shorter telomeres so that they don't replicate as much. Also, allicin induces apoptosis in colon cancer cells via its upregulation of the anti-inflammatory pathway NRF2. In terms of cardiovascular, now that's just cancer. In terms of cardiovascular health, one of the things most known about garlic is that it improves blood pressure. But I'll take you through a tour of some of the things. So first of all, in terms of that, how does that thought to happen? So it seems to be through allicin. And allicin, what it does is interact with free thiol groups and thiol-containing compounds like glutathione. In doing so, it produces free hydrogen sulfide, which interacts with nitric oxide, therefore nitric oxide being the main vasodilator of the body. Garlic also inhibits platelet aggregation, meaning that it can inhibit clotting to some degree, which could be helpful for cardiovascular disease. By the way, omega-3 fatty acids, EPA and DHA do the same thing. It does this, by the way, by increasing cyclic nucleotides and by inhibiting fibrinogen binding and thus inhibiting platelet shape change. A meta-analysis of 20 trials showed that garlic lowered systolic blood pressure by 5.1 mmHg and lowered diastolic blood pressure by 2.5. This reduction, though, is only evident in people that are hypertensive. So it's not reducing blood pressure in people that are normotensive. So it's not something really to be concerned about if you don't have high blood pressure. A meta-analysis also found reductions in cholesterol. So total cholesterol was reduced by 17 milligrams per deciliter, LDL cholesterol by 9, and within only people that had basically very high cholesterol levels. They had total cholesterol of over 200 milligrams per deciliter. However, this is not as robustly, so it's not as consistently found across studies. So some people improve, their lipids improve when they have bad lipids, but the blood pressure thing is really consistent. So allicin also prevents oxidized LDL from producing injury to the endothelial walls. And it does this by its effect on oxidative status and inhibiting apoptosis. Allicin also inhibits cholesterol synthesis in the liver, while other metabolites of the organosulfur molecules do this to the synthesis differentially. Allicin may be also protective from atherosclerosis because it inhibits the production of TMAO from bacteria from our microbiome. TMAO is one of the reasons that, if you guys have seen the Joe Rogan debate between the vegan and Chris Kresser, what you'll have seen is that the vegan, one of the main reasons he was against eating meat, other than the saturated fat, is the TMAO, which is, by the way, one of the original paper that brought up the TMAO was probably one of the most cited papers in the last 10 years. I think it has over 1,000 citations, maybe 3,000, I don't know. It's very popular. And actually garlic prevents the microbiome from producing TMAO, for example, in respect to L-carnitine, which is in meat. Now, in terms of the brain, again, this is some stuff that I think I'm almost certain nobody has discussed before from the research, which is number one, allicin may be neuroprotective from glutamate excitotoxicity. You guys that watch my videos on the brain will know that some neurotransmitters that are excitatory can cause the death of neurons, including dopamine and glutamate. Allicin actually reduces glutamate transmission in the brain, in rodents' brains. Allicin is neuroprotective in rodent models of traumatic brain injury, and it does this by inhibiting oxidative damage and neuronal inflammation by increasing the phosphorylation of AKT as well as nitric oxide synthase. Allicin is also neuroprotective in rodent models of ischemia reperfusion, which means when there's low blood flow to an area and then the blood comes back in, this is a kind of damage that causes cell death. And it does this again by inhibiting oxidative stress, inflammation, dysfunction of the mitochondrial respiratory chain, as well as apoptosis, and by upregulating antioxidant enzymes such as catalase, superoxide dismutase, glutathione peroxidase, and glutathione S-transferase. Allicin dose-dependently inhibits acetylcholinesterase and butyrylcholinesterase, which are enzymes involved in breaking down acetylcholine. So because of this, allicin actually increases the presence of the neurotransmitter acetylcholine in the brain, which for those of you who have watched my series on the cholinergic system, you'll know is the main way that Alzheimer's disease symptoms of cognitive decline that are associated with Alzheimer's disease are attenuated. They give Alzheimer's disease patients drugs like galantamine and most particularly donepezil that inhibit the breakdown of acetylcholine, because acetylcholine is so intimately involved in learning and cognition and memory. So allicin does this as well. In rodent models of Alzheimer's disease, allicin improves cognition by reducing oxidative stress, mitochondrial dysfunction, and reducing beta amyloid plaque presence. In a rodent model of cognitive impairment, allicin improves cognition by upregulating NRF2 mediated antioxidant, or by upregulating the NRF2 antioxidant pathway. In a rodent model of social defeat stress-induced depression, which is rather particular, allicin attenuated depressive symptoms by reducing microglia activation. The microglia are the main inflammatory components of the nervous system. And by reducing inflammatory cytokine expression, reducing abnormal iron accumulation, and limiting neuronal apoptosis in the hippocampus. Maybe I should explain a couple of these things. Iron accumulation in the brain causes damage to the brain and is linked to Alzheimer's disease, by the way. Anything that you're doing that's damaging the brain will also affect well-being. Cytokines, inflammatory cytokines, directly cause depressive symptoms. So if you inject a rodent with, for example, tumor necrosis factor alpha, they will develop depressive symptoms. So if you can reduce the pro-inflammatory cytokines and the activation of the microglia, you will reduce depressive symptoms. And allicin does this. Again, the main organosulfur molecule that we're interested in garlic. So, now, another thing that you probably didn't know is this garlic and heavy metal poisoning subject. So allicin potently and dose-dependently reduces the retention of lead. When I say potently, I mean potently, by up to 70% in the liver, where it is very concerning. It does this in the tissues and in the blood, and it also, though, reduces zinc retention as well. Garlic extract can reduce the retention of cadmium, which is another heavy metal that we're concerned about. Allicin also protects the liver from iron-induced damage. Now, iron in the liver causes serious damage. It's linked to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and many other things, cancers and all kinds of things. Which is why I always tell people, do not take a multivitamin or multimineral with iron in it. Certainly don't do that. And that's the reason I really want to start doing my own phlebotomies, but I've been delaying it constantly. It's really getting ridiculous now. But anyway, garlic extract also protects from the cytotoxicity associated with mercury poisoning, and protects the liver from damage due to arsenic poisoning. So those are the heavy metals. Now about the microbiome. This is something you guys probably did know. Garlic extract it has antibacterial effects on both gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria. It is able also to sensitize bacteria to the effects of antibiotics. It is also anti-parasitic and antifungal. The chemical mechanism, though, by which it exerts this antibacterial effect is not clearly understood. I really tried to dig into the details, and it's not understood. So one study shows one brand of aged garlic extract called Kyolic, which we'll return to later, was found to increase the species Lactobacillus and Clostridia. I've never pronounced Clostridia before. After 3 months of basically what we've seen is this: garlic extract, although it's antibacterial, it seems to improve the function of the microbiome, increasing the different species, the variety, and getting rid of some of the bad species, or the species that are, don't have a symbiotic relationship with us. So it also, it should be known that the antibacterial or antimicrobial effects of garlic depend on, the species of garlic and where it's grown. I mentioned before that allicin particularly reduces the transformation of L-carnitine into TMAO by the microbiome. And I've mentioned this before also, but allicin has proved useful in the treatment of H. pylori the very concerning bacteria that causes gastric cancers. By the way, guys, you can just go to your doctor on your next visit, and there's like a breath test where you can test to see if you have H. pylori. If you live in Asia, I highly recommend doing so, but you may also have it if you live in Europe or America. And it's something that's easily treatable and could prevent you from serious health complications. And when you do get it treated, you may want to take your garlic supplement as well. Now I just want to, this is toward the end of my discussion now, we're going to talk about supplements. I just want you guys to know about the allicin content of different kinds of garlic. So black garlic has the least, followed by pickled garlic, followed by boiled garlic, followed by roasted garlic. Roasted garlic maintains the most of all the different kinds of these cooking methods or processing methods. Enteric coated garlic tablets are the worst absorbed, and they're even absorbed worse when you eat a protein-rich meal. In general, I would avoid enteric coated garlic tablets if you can. Also, I should mention that some studies have shown that most of the garlic supplements contain far less allicin than they say they do, about 15% of what they say they do. And the reason seems to be because they have low allinase activity, that's the enzyme that's involved in the conversion, and that they do not disintegrate quickly enough once they're eaten, which is why enteric coated tablets are not preferred. So by the way, that's an enteric coated tablet is one of those like hard tablets. So now let's talk about supplements. I'm going to give you guys some helpful tips. I don't know how much detail I should give you here. Well, first of all, let's know that 1 gram of fresh garlic produces 1 to 3.33 milligrams of allicin. And dried garlic should produce about 3 times that much because it has less water, so when you weigh it, per gram, obviously. I subscribe to some companies that review garlic supplements, and I'd like to let you guys know the reviews are actually not that extensive, but stay away from 2. One is the Walmart brand, Spring Valley, and one is Garlic. You're unlikely to come across Garlic, but stay away from the Walmart brand one. Now I'm going to tell you guys which garlic supplements I personally take, and I'm also going to include links to those supplements in my notes. So probably when you get down to the bottom of the notes, the last page, you'll see this section on garlic supplements, and I'll just put a hyperlink there where you can click on it and go directly to Amazon. I'll also include my Amazon affiliate link, although it doesn't really matter, but Lucy tells me I should always include it, so I will. But here's what I wanted to say. So first of all, you can judge these supplements based on a few metrics, the garlic supplements. Basically, it's the cost per whatever. Okay, yeah, so it's the cost, and then the cost per what? Usually they'll look at the cost per allicin, either the proven allicin or the estimated total allicin, or the SAC, that's one of the things I mentioned before, that increases in the aged garlic. Or you can also, yeah, it's basically those 2 things. So, but you have to keep in mind that the aged garlic may have more phytochemicals in general, other kinds of phytochemicals like the flavanols and flavonoids and phenols. So I take all 3 of these, but I'll just explain. So the main consumer review website, yeah, it's a website that I use, their choice is based on the lowest cost. So, well, first let me tell you, the lowest cost in terms of allicin is a company called Life Extension Optimized Garlic, which is 4.5 times cheaper than the second cheapest, which is Nature's Way Garlinase 5000. That's for allicin. For SAC, or SAC, Swanson Best Garlic Odor Controlled is the cheapest, which is 4 times cheaper than the second cheapest, which is Solgar Garlic Powder. Well, I shouldn't go into this. You can see the more details when you go look at the notes. But the website I used, their overall best pick, which is called Consumer Lab, by the way, their overall pick was Swanson Best Garlic Odor Controlled Garlic. The reason why is because it's the cheapest, and mainly because of the amount of SAC in it. I use Swanson's Best because it has the most SAC, but I don't use it because it's the cheapest or anything else. So I use Swanson's Best but I also use Life Extension Optimized Garlic, which is not odorless, by the way, is very pungent. You probably have to take it with a meal, but it has by far the most allicin. It has so much allicin. It is very powerful. And it's only a little bit more expensive than Swanson. I also take and by the way, just so you know, 3 capsules, which is the suggested serving. 3 capsules of Swanson, which is the one that has the most SAC, gives you 6,000 micrograms of allicin, but almost 13,000 micrograms of SAC. On the other hand, Life Extension gives you, in 2 capsules, 40,000 of allicin, which is, you know, tons. It's a lot. That's 40 milligrams. It's really quite a lot. But only gives you 224 micrograms of SAC. On the other hand, the aged garlic, which I use, is called Kyolic. It's a very famous brand. A lot of people use it. It actually has 4 times less SAC, even though it's aged, than the Swanson one. And it's way more expensive. It's more than double the price of the other 2. But I take it because it's aged, and I think it may have some other benefits. So I take all 3 of them. So guys, I know this was a little dry, but I hope you benefited a little bit from this discussion. Garlic does way more than what people realize. It has potent anti-cancer effects. It is good for cardiovascular health. It improves probably the browning of fat. It has a lot of antibacterial effects. It just has tremendous effects all over because of these organosulfur compounds. So I still eat allium vegetables. I eat leeks sometimes. The problem is leeks, you have to cook them, and that reduces a lot of the potential. But I still tried, and I used to pour a lot of garlic powder on my salads, but that started tasting really badly. So now I take these 3 supplements. I was still taking supplements before, but I was really going hardcore with the amount of garlic I was taking. Now I take these 3 supplements, but I still eat allium family vegetables once in a while. But the reason why I eat that family, why I think that the cruciferous family and the allium family are so powerful, for the allium family, it's because of these organosulfur compounds, and allicin being the one that I'm most concerned about. So here's my view on garlic. Every week I'm going to try to pick a supplement that I use and tell you guys why I use it, review the literature for it, and when it's applicable, when I have a very strong recommendation of which supplement to use. So for example, last week with melatonin I didn't, because I'm actually not very happy with any of the extended timed release versions that I've tried so far. So I'm going to try to, when I do come up with a recommendation, I'll let you guys know. But here I had some. So you can go to the website, check out the notes. There's a lot of, I don't know how many citations there are here. There's at least probably 60 or more. And they're good papers. You should check them out if you want to. And you'll be able to see the supplements that I take there and make your own decision. By the way, if I was going to take one of those supplements, I would take the Life Extension one. But it's, as I said, very pungent. You have to eat it. You have to take it with food. I actually take the Kyolic aged odorless garlic in the morning without any food in my normal morning supplements. So anyway, guys, I hope this was very helpful. I'm going to continue next week. I don't know what I'm going to do, which supplement I'm going to recommend next week, but I'll do a review on it. I hope you guys enjoy this, hopefully every week, because people ask me about supplements a lot. At least this way we go through all the supplements, and it's probably going to take me a whole year because I take at least 50 supplements. So it'll be one a week, probably at least a year, and then you guys can refer back to each one and see which ones you think are worth including. I definitely think garlic is worth including for most people. I hope you learned something from this video, and I hope you have a great day.